Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Good and Bad. I am Infinity with Reality Skewed Gamers, and we are here to review another week in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Now, if you're not familiar with what this show is, we give things a thumbs up or a thumbs down based on whether or not we think what happened during this week was a good thing or a bad thing, and then at the end of the episode, we will go ahead and count them up, disregard that entirely, and then tell you what we think was either a good week or a bad week based on just the overall proceedings of the week. So let's go ahead and jump in right now to talk about all the different things that happened in this week, as it was kind of a busy week, surprisingly. So the first thing is a little bit of a follow-up from last week. Now, last week we talked a little bit about the auto-banning posts that have happened, and people on Reddit had posted that they were getting auto-banned while they were facing the 3PO, the Watt, and the Hermit Yoda team. Now, there was some confusion about whether or not this happened. Cubs fan Han tested it on his stream and saw that he did not get banned for it. However, there was a post on the Reddit forums that seemed to be somewhat reliable, because when you checked out that person's Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes GG page, you did see that that person got banned. And looking at the overall roster for that person, there really didn't seem anything striking in terms of them being cheating or having anything other than just having this one instance. Now, there may be some things in the back we don't really particularly know. However, with a game this large, for Crum to post this out there saying that there is no auto-banning process, I can tell you that I am very skeptical. They are definitely undermanned at CG, so much to the point that they can't even test their game. To think that they have enough manpower to test in a game of millions of people what reports are coming in about cheating, I don't think they have this capability just from the manpower. It makes sense for them to have an auto-banning process. I would not be opposed to it. Something like this, while it should be caught, I understand where if something is being beaten too quickly, that it does end up getting auto-banned, and then they might need to put an exception for particular teams. However, with what came out here, and honestly, the fact that I really don't believe this, and the fact that there is no auto-banning issue, I believe there is. It might have been fixed really quickly, but overall, I am giving this a thumbs down.
This is bad.
And that's mainly, again, because I don't really believe this post. It does look like whatever it was tend to be fixed, and hopefully it's going to remain that way, but we'll see what happens from this point. Now, after that, there was a lot of good stuff that happened. We got a little bit of an extension of the Stay and Play. Now, again, the Stay and Play was an EA initiative to kind of help with those that are still staying at home because of the COVID crisis and not able to go out. So different games amongst EA are releasing things in order to keep players engaged and entertained during this difficult time. CG has participated in this as well and provided us some different bonuses with some extra loot and double drops and all these, and they put out another post talking about how we will continue with some of those, and there's double drops coming up. Now you can see it on the screen here, when the double drops are coming up, when certain things are there, plus the extent of the challenges. I am glad that they're giving us something extra here to go along with the Stay and Play process. It may be a little bit under the radar because, unfortunately for CG, when you do things like this, it doesn't stand out for most players. Most players will look for something in their inbox. So, if they don't see anything in their inbox, this could slide under the radar, especially for things like challenges, where a lot of times we just hit that sim button until they're all done, and then we move on to the next thing. You don't really pay attention to the fact that you get 2 extra attempts on each of the challenges, which is, in reality, a really nice thing, especially when you get extra Carbantes and all the other loot that's there. So, while I do like this, I wish CG would get more recognition for it by going about it in a different way, but I am still giving this a thumbs up.
This is good.
And so that brings us to the next thing. Now, we gave this a thumbs up because it is really nice of them to add all this new stuff with the EA Stay and Play. We now get the road ahead. Now, the road ahead is a little bit interesting. It's actually talking about how there is a delay in the road ahead. But if you look at this post, to me, this is actually a good post. It is a post talking about how CG knows that there are issues with their coding, and rather than trying to release more content that is broken or not up to some kind of standard, they are telling us, okay, we're going to put a hold on this for now. We're not releasing anything. We're working on making the improvements so that we can release content for you at a much better rate. So overall, this post is getting a thumbs up.
because this is good.
Now, here is one caveat that I'll put on this. What they're talking about in this post is something that we as players have been talking about for years now. There is definitely something wrong with the game and the way that they release content, not to mention the fact that there is a disconnect in the definition of content. Players do not consider packs and new characters necessarily content. We are looking for modes to play these characters. And when the last thing they gave us was Lightside GOTV, which is scaled for something well beyond what we had at the time, and even now it is really just the Galactic Legends that are consistently being able to get the max number of waves in any given mission, not to mention the fact that it is still 100% impossible to get the maximum number of stars, even if you had your entire roster maxed out. That is what players consider content, and that was really poor content. Looking at this post, it's kind of obvious that CG released that in order to buy themselves time. They gave us something that we just kind of slowly nibble away at, won't be able to consume the whole thing, and by the time we finally get to that point through slow release after slow release after slow release of characters and ships, at that point, they will finally be ready to move on. So, CG with this little bit of a distraction process with the Lightside GOTV, I understand what they were doing. They weren't open and upfront about it from the beginning, but they finally came out with a post. And so while I'm disappointed that it took them this long, 4 years into a billion-dollar game that people have been playing in, it took them this long to figure it out. And now, at least it's there, so we can hopefully get this fixed. So because of that, I gave this a thumbs up. We then jump into the content update that came out. Now, the content update came out with a few little things. Primarily that there is a new Galactic Chase with a new ship. And they gave us a few other things in here, like a new pack and some bug fixes, and they gave us the calendar. All of that is okay, but I'm overall giving this content update a thumbs up.
Because this is good.
And that is because I really do like the new Rebel Y-Wing. It has long been known that in Fleet we have a depravity in the tanky ships that we can use. Houndstooth is a ship that's being used in pretty much every Fleet lineup, and it makes it very difficult for us to diversify when we get to GAC and in Territory Wars. And so we saw it with a little bit with the BTL Y-Wing coming in and kind of being that sub-in tank that we can use on a negotiator fleet while keeping Houndstooth. We are now seeing that with the Rebel Y-Wing. The Rebel Y-Wing actually could be an anti-Houndstooth ship. Looks pretty good. We'll sub in for that Home 1 fleet, allowing us to move Houndstooth maybe to a different team that we want to use. Maybe the Malevolence, for example, in the starting lineup. So I am glad that they're starting this diversification of tanky ships. They mentioned this as one of the kind of the only points really that stood out in the last Q&A, which is that they are working on tanky ships. We're seeing that now with the Rebel Y-Wing, and I am glad for this. So this ship is getting a thumbs up. The ship is being released in a Galactic Chase event, and the Galactic Chase event has its own issues that came up this week. We can see in this post that came out that players pretty quickly, when they started farming it, noticed that the drop rates on the Galactic Chase did not match what was previously posted. We were previously told that there was an about 4% chance per energy spent on the node for a drop rate. So if you had 10 energy nodes that you were farming, you would get a 40% drop rate. If you farmed a 20 energy node, you would get 80%. And this is the way that we had all come to learn about this. The problem is they did not mention that because Fleet Energy had changed the way that it refreshed and changed the refresh amounts, that players would be penalized for this. In fact, it really makes no sense because the Fleet Energy is now on par with the regular energy, and regular energy still maintains that 4% drop rate. However, because they changed Fleet Energy, they actually now reduced that from 4% to 2%. And players were noticing very quickly that they were not receiving the same amount of shards as they were told. And this post came after people had figured it out. They were not upfront about it in the beginning, which means that players who had spent crystals in order to refresh, in order to get more energy and accumulate these Galactic Chase event shards, got gypped. This is not a good process by CG. It actually makes no sense that they actually did it this way, but they did it this way. Players got screwed as a process, And as you can probably guess, this is getting a thumbs down.
This is bad.
So, overall this week, there was kind of a mix between thumbs up and thumbs down. You'll see that it's 3-2 right now on the side of good. The bads were somewhat bad, and it was that the Galactic Chase event drop rate had been reduced, as well as the fact that the auto banning thing, to me anyways, I don't believe them when they say there is no auto banning procedure. And I am actually one that would be in favor of one, and them just coming out and saying, yeah, there was a glitch here, we thought we had corrected it, we didn't, and now we're going to make sure that it doesn't happen. Like, that would have made more sense to me. This actually makes no sense to me because it just means that they have manual people handling that. But that being said, I think the good did outweigh the bad. In particular, I'm going to give a lot of credence to that Road Ahead post. The Road Ahead post really showed that CG understands that they effed up this game for the past 4 years. They did not build this in a way that was sustainable. And maybe it's because they didn't believe this game was going to survive. Maybe it was because they wanted to do the lazy thing and just try to put out code and didn't really think about future term. Whatever the reason is, they have finally come to the realization that this game has been produced like crap for the past 4 years and are finally trying to correct it. Who knows what this means for the rest of the game? I hope that they do a good job on this because it's almost like they're getting a second life with the players, assuming that they do this correctly. If they don't do this correctly, then all of the ill will that came up to this point is going to carry over. CG has a chance to try and make things a little bit better. And so with that, I am going to give this week overall a thumbs up. So that is this week in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Overall, a thumbs up. Some good, some bad, but overall, I think the direction of this game is going in the good direction. So we're going to see how this continues during the next few weeks. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And if you would like to become a member to get access to the RSG emojis, make sure you hit that bell so you can get notified whenever we go live. And once again, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Good and Bad. Make sure you head to the Discord if you have any other questions or put them in the comments of this video.